And so it was 100 days of Donald Trump again. Way too many days. Welcome everyone to the Bituation Room. Live, the show, the stream, the thing, the podcast, the place, the time, the motion. What is it? I don't know how it goes. It's fine. You're here. Hopefully you're queer and we're getting used to it. I am excited because even though everything's mostly bad, and I only looked into moving abroad once this morning. So we've got two fabulous guests. Comedian Josh Gondelman is back on the show, as well as foreign policy analyst and author of Informed Comment, which is a long-standing blog that everyone should be reading, should have on their regular check-ins. Juan Cole is also back on the program after a long time. Really excited to get his breakdown and thoughts of everything we are seeing, specifically the international fallout of having this, head wound Hitler in charge of the largest military on earth. So if you're here, why don't you go ahead and like and share the stream right now? Do all the things, click all the buttons, ring the bell so you know whenever we're going live on YouTube. If you're over on Twitch, what's up? Why don't you subscribe? Why don't you follow at least? Just see if you like it. Like Simple Man from the Woods. Look, even a simple man from the woods can subscribe with Prime, and you can too. Very excited to have all y'all here. And of course, we're going to be rounding it out with a little thank you to all of the new patrons, with our fart song, and all the things. Because in fact, if you didn't know, this is 1/3 of the entire Bituation Room. We have a Wednesday show and a Friday show. The Wednesday show is a bonus episode. It's free to stream live, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. But if you want to watch it back, if you want to listen to it back, you got to become a member on YouTube, a patron, patreon.com/Bituation Room, which is my personal preference, which actually is good for you because it's got all the perks. Our little private chats, our reading suggestions, guest suggestions, 20% off of our merchandise, which is 100% union made in the United States. Not to be like, not to be protectionist about it, but, trying to support. Spared no expense. And so there's so many perks, discounts on the American Prospect magazine. And thank you so much. Last week, we talked about Coachella. I gave some insights into my personal history with Coachella and why I think that the artists speaking out for Palestine is actually quite new and different. And then, of course, the freak out about those artists speaking out about Palestine. So check that out if you haven't already. Also, if you didn't know, the Bituation Room will be live. That's right. We are going to solve Los Angeles, people. I know many have tried, but we will on Friday, May 30th, post fires, pre-Olympics, pre-World Cup. We're hosting literally everyone in this city except for its own residents. The Bituation Room will be live with council member Eunices Hernandez, John Idarola of the Damage Report, Rachel Reyes of the LA Podcast, who's just so incredible, and then a man named Mr. Matt Lieb, who just kind of, hangs around. He's just sort of there, but we love him, and he's also he's a native Angelino, so he has to weigh in personally. And it's going to be so good. Get your tickets, francescafiorentini.com, wherever you're watching this or listening to this as well. And once again, if you're in the Bay Area, May 7th, very, very, very soon, next Wednesday, Matt and I are going to be at Cobb's Comedy. If you haven't gotten your tickets, get them now. If you have gotten your tickets, send them to your friends, get a whole crew on board. I'm like, maybe we'll do drinks after. Let's go somewhere nice. Let's celebrate. I know, one of the things of the realities is that people aren't spending as much. They're not going out as much. So I understand that you have a choice when spending a little bit of money. And I'm glad you're choosing to spend it with me. Just come out, hang. It'll be good. And before I get to it, because we're sort of doing a different program today, skipping Orange Man bad because Orange Man is bad the entire hour and change. Let me tell you about our sponsor and about actually an fun ailment that you might not know. Not only does Francesca have difficulty sleeping, because I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, maybe we'll need to like how many carry-ons will we need when we travel on our, like, wherever, like with the family. I literally spend, like, this is mom brain, right? That's like crazy mom brain of like, well, her pack and play is getting a little small, so we're gonna have to bring this. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, brain? Why? Go to sleep. And then I'll start thinking of jokes at like 3 a.m. Like, either write them down or go to sleep, but stop just staying in bed thinking about jokes and tags that you should be doing on stage. The point is, other than not being able to sleep, which our product does help me with, I also have repetitive strain injury in my arms from all of the computer crap and all of the phone crap. If you guys suffer from RSI, let's offline this and we can talk in depth about all the things that actually help and all the like crazy things that I have to do. It's a reason why I use like a stylus instead of a mouse. I can't use a mouse, but sunsetlakecbd.com has salves or salves or whatever the hell you want to call them, lotions, rubs that have CBD in them. They have arnica in them. They have lidocaine, which is the stuff that kind of like makes your arms tingle and also smell. But it really works. Like when I'm having a flare up, if you guys have pains, aches, I got a lot of them. You just rub some on and it's incredible what their salves do. So sunsetlakecbd.com, get their gummies, get their tinctures, get their salves, and get 20% off with coupon code FRANTIFA, FRANTIFA, 20% off your entire order. And address your ailments or whatever. Anyway, I'm very excited to bring in to the show. He is a comedian. He is an award-winning comedian writer. That's what I'm calling him. His debut stand-up special, People Pleaser, is available to stream right now. Please welcome Josh Gondelman.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me back, friend. So nice to see you.
So good to see you, Josh. I've been thinking about you because you have not been on this show since, Doggy took over, started gutting everything and started threatening NPR. And you've been on Wait, Don't Tell Me a number of times.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned about this, like, kind of programming, right? Like that, obviously the woke agenda that you push on NPR and your ability to continue to do so.
I'm also very concerned about my ability to push the woke agenda. It is like, there's nothing that they won't take a hammer to. Not NPR, but the Doge folks.
Yeah,
and
right.
it's so
NPR is really trying to find a hammer. They're like, I've got it somewhere. We've got to.
Yeah, they have
That's
kind
a
of
little
very.
violent.
I'm sure there's some kind of gentle show about home renovations of this old house type, but for the audio world.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I'm worried for my friends and colleagues that are on staff there, and like hopefully
Yeah.
that they stay safe and employed and happy and prosperous.
I know they'll just have to like book, I don't know, some like Tony Hinchcliffe or like, something like that and be like,
That's
oh, we're
the new, instead of Wait, Don't Tell Me next weekend on NPR, it's going to be Kill Peter instead. And you have to try to get Peter Sagal to laugh in 1 minute.
I think that would actually be tight. Josh, we start the show every show we started the same way, which is asking our guests. I'm bitching about everything, so I digress to you. Let's pinpoint it, focus. 100 Days of Trump, which we're going to talk about in a bit, but what are you bitching about today?
Outside of that, and I'm sure that someone's gone to this on the show before, but accidentally clicking on AI apps in my phone, where like I go to Instagram and I want to send a friend a DM to say like, do you want to get coffee later? Or yes, I can do this stand-up show. And then it goes, do you want to imagine this with AI? And I'm like, number one, I don't. Number two, that's not what imagining is. Imagining happens in here. You making a picture of it using generative AI it's not imagination. It's one, plagiarism, and two, visibly perceivable. That's not what an imagination is.
That's amazing. Like that. I always think about the freshwater resources that are used to create like some sort of like, me coffee, like create image of me and my friend having coffee instead of me just writing them. Do you want to have coffee?
Or me taking a picture of them when we go get coffee together. Like that's what I want. I don't need like a Bitmoji that like sends a penguin off solitary on one ice floe to die.
That's the whole thing about AI, that it's a fake bubble, because
Yes.
it's not like Siri doesn't even understand us.
Mhm,
Like, voice to text doesn't even
mhm.
work well. Exactly as you're saying, like there's no, even just like basic things that you want, like, hey, reminder, ping me to, like, yeah, take a photo to capture a memory, whatever it is that I can do, AI doesn't do that. And the other thing that's really pissing me off is like about AI is it's slowing down every website.
Oh, yeah.
So you're just trying to do a thing and it's like, oh, excuse me while and those fucking three dots that are just like,
Yep.
"Boop, boop, boop,"
Yeah.
Um, eh,
And
ah,
and I'm trying to be less of a hater, because I am quite a hater, and, but I'm trying to take be less blanket, none of this will ever be good. So if there are people, experts in other fields that go, actually, for this purpose, some kind of artificial intelligence model can create a thing that saves me days of work, and I
sure.
can check it because I'm an expert, and that's the use of it, right? Is to like put up something that I can verify with my expertise and with the other tools at my disposal. That and that actually is really good, and it's not like cutting people's jobs, and it's just like making life easier for people, that it's like an extra tool for those people. I'm open to that being the truth, but
Right.
everything people have shown me for my life, I'm like, well, that stinks. That's
Yeah.
like, it'd be like, oh, do you want to go to the car wash to brush your teeth? And it's like, no, that's not the tool for this. I'm fine brushing my teeth manually with a toothbrush.
But this is the whole, and the other thing about it, and like given that you're a stand-up and
Mhm.
you're a writer, it is also like completely mining creatives' own work, and I hate to
Yes.
call it content because we sort of cheapened it to call it content. But the sort of, the stand-up, real mill of putting out tons
Mhm.
and tons of clips, all that's being gobbled up. And again, some Google AI dude years ago, this is like 8 years ago, told me the one thing they can't conquer is comedy, but they will. They will attempt it, and they already are, and it's just like we're giving them constant free shit. So if someone
Well,
asks
let's
why I don't have stand-up clips up, that's why. That's definitely why.
let's also, I think, let's be, I'm gonna get conspiratorial for a minute. I think the uh, um the imperative to feed an algorithm with constant work that is maybe um draft quality, right? Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting up a work in progress, or an interaction with an audience member that is like fun and singular, but not, you wouldn't put it in an hour special, right? Like,
Sure.
there's a place for things that aren't your like most finely attuned piece of art. However, I do think the further we lower the standards for what audiences expect as comedy, the easier it is for AI to do that.
No, yeah, AI will just be like, what do you do? How long you
Yes,
been dating?"
AI can
Oh,
for sure ask two people how long they've been dating, and
yes.
then when there's hesitation, go, "Uh-oh," and
Uh-uh.
like AI can do that.
Yes, 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 and then we'll never have to watch a single crowd work clip again, and
Mhm.
nobody will want crowd work. Um, yeah, no, I think it's a really good thing to bitch about. I'm like, I don't know, I don't Gemini, I don't care. I don't
I
even
don't care.
know. I
It's an
don't care.
Instagram, right? Google, it's Google has Gemini. There's a Microsoft one, and it's like, a stop. If um if it were good, you wouldn't have to like shove it down my throat and up my ass.
Totally. All right, well, let's get into it. So many things happened this week, but we're breaking down three main stories. This is the week where. So it has been, as of today, Tuesday, April 29th, 100 days of Donald Trump's reign, second administration, and my dick hasn't grown a single inch, and I am pissed. I was told Project 2025 meant my dick would grow like at least 25%.
Is that what the
So
25 in Project 2025 was?
that's what it was about.
Wow.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. So I'm already mad. Obviously, the big news is that Donald Trump's approval rating is in the toilet. It's at 39%, which is the lowest it's ever been for any president in 80 years. I think since we actually started measuring approval rating. Um, and it's the lowest since Trump's last first 100 days in 2017, which was 42%, which doesn't instill me with that much confidence, Josh, because it's like, oh, well, he served a full term.
Right. Well, that's what's hard, right? You go 39%, and it's like, fuck me, I guess. Like,
exactly. Like,
people do hate him.
cool.
I hate him.
What are we doing about it? He's
Yeah.
still there, last I checked.
Mhm.
He's got over 200 lawsuits in 100 days, which is like a pretty good record, honestly. And just in terms of where people's approval, this is a Marist poll that gives Donald Trump what grade? A, B, C, D. Real split here. 23% A, 45% an F.
The people that perplex me the most are not the A people who are like, good, he's being as racist as I'd hoped. It's the C people who are like, I think this is average. This is the average presidency for me. Yeah.
I love that. They're just like, I don't know. When you look at it more specifically, it's really, and I wish, this is where I'm like, I wish it was over toddlers being deported, even though they're American citizens. I wish it was over people being disappeared into black sites in El Salvador. I wish it was over, NIH grants being canceled and vaccine hesitancy and in autism.
Measles outbreaks and
people being warehoused.
Regulations on food safety.
Exactly. I wish it was over that, but it really is around the economy, which again, I know it bleeds out into everything else. It's not just about the money in your wallet, but it kind of is. 72% think he's going to cause a recession. 73% say the economy is in bad shape. And 53% are saying that it's gotten worse since Trump's been in office. I think that's the Ipsos, Washington Post Ipsos poll.
Do you think that the people who believe he's going to cause a recession, the 72%, do you think they're possibly going on the fact of him and Elon Musk going, we're going to cause a recession? We're going to make the economy worse? Do you think that could possibly be what they're included to?
Maybe. I guess so. Yeah, maybe they're just like listening to the words that are coming out of the actual president's mouth. Like, where times are going to be tough. You're going to have to deal with this.
There's going to be some pain, right? That's what Elon Musk said before the election even. They said, hey, it's going to be economically bad. And then people are going, well, I trust this guy for the economy because he's weathered so many bankruptcies. And if he can do it, so can I, or whatever the fuck they thought.
And it's so great because even Fox News is really struggling. Granted, this is a still, and there was a couple more things because I want to say they did have changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which is a win. It hits really hard for dumb fucks. But this is
dumb fucks want that. Like there are people who I'm like, God, your priorities are so toxic and disgusting and bad. But I don't think anyone was like, oh, I hope he changes the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. That's going to make me feel so powerful.
I'm just saying, when's my dick gonna grow? It hasn't. So this is Aaron Rupar just tweeting a little still. Even Fox News is having a hard time spinning Trump's first 100 days. Presidential accomplishments in their sort of list here: declassified the JFK files, revealed kind of nothing new, ended federal support for paper straws.
How much was the federal government propping up big paper straw? What was the line item in the federal budget for paper straws?
Like maximum, you got to say like 15 million.
I thought you were going to say $15.
I'm like, there's no way. And then the last is ended production of the penny. Thank God the tyranny.
The long national nightmare is over.
It's over.
I think though, I mean, there weren't a lot of arguments for continuing to produce the penny, right? Like it wasn't it wasn't like that's not what's driving the economy. I think this is sneakily a way to get back at Abraham Lincoln for the Emancipation Proclamation when Trump does it.
Actually, Trump was the best president for African Americans. So
as long as you forget about many of the other ones, not all of them, not most of them.
Right, exactly. And I keep on thinking with this penny thing, don't you keep on thinking about like sort of like curiosity stores where you can like stretch your penny into like a different thing?
Yeah.
I just pour one out for those.
Now you have to, with inflation, you have to bring in $1 bill.
That's gonna be $100.
Tears the dollar bill into shreds.
I mean, meanwhile, of course, we got the meme coin rolling out, which somehow is legal, and everyone's just like, oh, we're such libs. Like, we're such little, like, can he do that? Like, he's doing it. What the fuck? So obviously this is on top of like all the corruption, all of the insanity. And it really is about tariffs. Would put a pin in that, because I do want to go to Fox News actually calling out, oh shoot, do we not have this? Fox News was calling out these polls to the face, like to Trump's actual, to Stephen Miller's face, and saying, what do you think of this? Here, let me just bring this up, because the response is just incredible.
He's sort of underwater, and particularly on the economy, tariffs, and inflation, he's well underwater. You've still got some work to do in that front. A lot of people think that he's spending too much time on tariffs and not enough time on the economy and lowering prices. What do you say?
Well, I don't want to make things awkward for you, John, but it is our opinion that Fox News needs to fire his pollster. And I won't surprise you with that. I don't think you're surprised that I'm saying that, but the Fox News pollster has always been wrong about President Trump. They were the ones that said all summer long that Kamala Harris was going to be the 47th president of the United States. So we don't acknowledge any of that polling. But I want
John, I hate to break it to you, but put your balls between your legs right now. Put them right now. Just tuck them right now.
I'm turn around and I will kick you in them.
Yeah, turn around.
There's so much there to hate. And not just Stephen Miller. I think, like, starting from the fact that there's two men with one head of hair, like if they average out the total amount of hair on those two guys' heads, it would be one normal amount of hair to have. Fox touting 55% approved. They went with the highest number as the lower third Chiron, right? That's what they're really pushing, is like 55% approve of
That's
Trump,
right, of border security,
on border, which is, and again, like you were saying earlier, the way that our country treats and has treated migrants, asylum seekers, immigrants in many ways is so cruel and despicable, and that's what people like the most, is like chills my blood to iced coffee levels. But it's God.
But it's also like, I do want to just point out,
please,
that like, so here, let me try to bring this back up. The border security, if I can do this without showing everything here, but border security is 55% approved. That's the only thing, as you mentioned. But immigration broadly, more people, according to the Fox News poll, disapprove. On deportations, more people disapprove. And this squares, as we sort of get, upset about, obviously, and rightfully upset that, folks are more focused on tariffs than they are about these, like, human rights abuses. But like the majority of Americans also are like, hey, return this guy from Maryland who was deported unjustly. Of
course. Right. And I think that's a really smart point, right? Where even though people are like, well, we shouldn't let anyone in at the border, they're like, oh, but that's not what I meant. That's not the immigrants that I'm talking about.
Exactly.
It's so, it's so bleak. And it's like, I love that they showed 9 things where 8 of them, or whatever the number is, 8 out of 9, 7 out of 8, that he is underwater polling. And then they pick the one for the Chiron of like, people think he's good at the border. And it is. Wow.
And people are turning. Let's go to this clip from CNN did this interview with a woman who's in Arizona, seems to have voted for Trump, but like, listen to how much she's changed, and specifically over these threats to Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, all the things that have been third rails, that under Project 2025, it's like, no, we're touching that.
I'm worried about Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security. He did say that he wasn't going to cut them, that he was just going to find the waste. And I really hope that he sticks to that.
Why is that so important to you?
It's important because we need to take care of our people with disabilities and our elderly and those that depend on it. And they can't survive as it is right now, and we cannot cut.
Varga is a Tucson hero. Her food truck and candy store employ 50 people with special needs. She's renovating this restaurant to employ even more. A devout Christian, lifelong Republican, but some big changes. Varga says she no longer believes Trump's claim the 2020 election was rigged. She's now open to supporting Democrats for local offices, and says Trump tariffs are one reason prices are not dropping fast enough.
the items that we put in our gift baskets have gone up.
So when he says there's going to be some disruption, maybe even some pain, but we're going to get there. For now, you think, okay, I'll give you some time.
I'll give him some time, and I'm hopeful. But I think that if he doesn't come through, he's going to have a lot of people turning on him.
Ooh. I'm open to voting for Democrats locally. I don't think Trump lost 2020. And this is, I think, Josh, to what we were talking about. This is, I think, where Democrats need to exploit more, because even though, yes, folks are mad at the tariffs and everything's like stalled out because of the tariffs, right? There's, whatever, LA ports are going to have 35% less shipments arriving because of the tariffs and this ping pong.
And then he's going to take credit for solving LA traffic.
Right. Exactly. Please do. This is a woman, she probably is anti-choice, right? She probably thinks abortion is murder, but she runs a business for people with special needs. Like, people with special needs work in this business. She clearly has empathy. She's clearly talking about the elderly, the disabled. And so the idea that Democrats can only combat this authoritarian agenda and in the incompetence through pocketbook issues, I think is an oversight, because actually there's a moral lane to take when it comes to stripping people of their Medicaid, when it comes to, defunding cancer research, and when it comes to obviously deporting people. So I'm like, all of this is fine and good. It's great that they're turning their backs, but without an actual vision, without Democrats fighting more and actually fighting for this moral ground, I get worried.
And I think that you're right in that so many issues, you can call anything a distraction when you want people to see it as a distraction, right? If you're focus on the thing I want, this other thing is a distraction. And I think that if they can fuck up all this stuff that is important and keeps people alive and help, and is really important to the quality of life and equity and equality, we can talk about fixing it all, repairing it and protecting it, right? I don't think there's no Republicans going protecting Social Security is a distraction from the tariffs. They're going, no, ruin it all. You know what I mean? So I think it is harder to fill a lot of lanes at the same time with all sorts of these different projects. And the speed of tearing something down is obviously so much easier than the speed of building something up. We've all seen how toddlers operate around Legos and blocks, but it is not a distraction just because it's hard or means Gavin Newsom has to stay at the office late instead of having a podcast with the ghost of Eichmann.
Yeah. God. No, this is lastly, because we got to move. First of all, it's just amazing. I was going to ask you this question, is it worse than you thought it was? I'll give you my take. I think this is exactly as bad as I thought it would be. I think it's probably worse because I wasn't factoring in maybe the amount of executive orders that honestly somehow the entire media establishment and the political establishment was kind of taking as the gold standard. Today, Trump is basically weaponizing and deputizing local law enforcement to not only cooperate and run roughshod over any sanctuary city laws, but is also if you do anything bad, if you get prosecuted or you are under investigation, the federal government will back you up for being a cop on the job, doing whatever it is you need to do, killing an unarmed person.
Terrifying.
Right. And so I guess I'm no, man, this is as fucking bad. And anyone who was I don't know, he might be better, or I don't know, there's a MAGA base or there's a rift. It's shut up. You're so naive. We all knew this was going to happen.
I was naive in a way. I think the federal government, the elected official stuff that's being done and the executive orders were all kind of what I expected. I expected him to appoint a drunk TV host to lead the military.
Sure.
All of this, the stuff, the thing that I kind of mocked and needled when it was announced and did not did not fully, and this is on me, did not fully realize the gravity and the access they would have is the Doge stuff. Like Doge being able to walk into any building with armed guards and be like, give me everyone in America's social security number. Yes. No further questions. That stuff is like the amount that they've been able to like open the gas tank of the government and piss in it is like beyond my worst fears for it. And so that's on me.
There's no protection. You're like, oh,
okay. Bad enough existence. Maybe I should have asked AI to help me imagine that.
You really should have. You'd be like, yeah, imagine the worst possible thing, and then we would have been more prepared. See, yeah. AI can work in our favor. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And I think, you know, the fact that there is the side that law enforcement has been on, especially in the violent seizures of our data and access to, you know, again, yes, our social security numbers and our information is terrifying. And that, I think you're absolutely right, is something maybe we didn't see. So we're all a little naive, but not no more. Meanwhile, Josh, some North Americans might be getting it right. Canada, otherwise known as Canada. Canada just had an election that was pretty much all about Trump. Mark Carney, who is the head of the Liberal Party, the Liberal Party won the majority of seats. Mark Carney is now prime minister. This was after the Liberal Party had been in power since 2015, since Trudeau sort of, you know, was ousted effectively. People were very tired of him. And yet in the last 2 months, where the Conservative Party was surging for many, many months, it completely flipped. And now the Liberal Party was in favor to win, and they did win. A lot of smaller parties like the NDP, National Democratic Party, under Jagmeet Singh, they lost seats. The Bloc Québécois, I believe, lost some seats. Basically everybody coalesced around the Liberal Party, which is good and bad. But the reason that this happened is because Trump has been saying that Canada will be the 51st state. He said it over and over again. He said they'll be happier. Caroline Leavitt has said, your prices are so high. Come join the United States where our prices are also high. And here's where voters were at in Canada.
I think who I voted for would be the best to take care of Trump, because Trump is, I'm sorry to say, an ass, and he shouldn't even be president of the United States. But because he is, we need a strong person so that we could stand strong.
So the strong person, interestingly, Josh, was not the head of the Conservative Party who ran on Canada First, basically parroting the Trump line. The strong party was seen as the Liberal Party in this, under Mark Carney, because specifically of the ways that Trump is just like, oh yeah, you're going to just be one of ours. And suddenly Canadians have found this like nationalism that's risen Mike Myers from the dead. And not that Mike Myers, the actual actor Mike Myers.
Canadian legend.
Yes.
This is as if seismically for Canada, as if they announced a fourth Austin Powers movie. as earth-shaking and as unexpected as Austin Powers 4.
I mean, it's crazy. And like, here's Mark Carney, who seamlessly starts speaking French, which is already envious. Is just like, oh, okay, you speak a couple languages? That must be cool for like a world leader to like be bilingual. Here he is talking about how he's going to meet with Trump, but as sovereign nations. And if, the United States will not lead, Canada will lead.
When I sit down with President Trump, it will be to discuss the future economic and security relationship between two sovereign nations. And it will be with our full knowledge that we have many, many other options than the United States to build prosperity for all Canadians.
We will strengthen our relationship with reliable partners in Europe, in Asia, and elsewhere in the world. And if the US doesn't want to play a pivotal role in the world economy. We will lead, not the Americans.
So I misspoke and said they got a majority. The Liberal Party did not get a majority. In fact, according to David Dole, who has been on the show and has a great channel called Rational National, everyone should follow. He wrote, Liberals just short of a majority, putting NDP in the deciding seats. Jagmeet Singh loses his seat, making NDP leadership race quick and painless. Pierre Poilievre of the Conservative Party loses his seat. This is actually the perfect result. And the reason he's saying that is sort of that the Liberal Party still has to form coalitions in order to get that majority with the NDP, which again, the more leftist party did incredible work, especially around, I believe, expanding dental care in Canada to the poorest Canadians. They did lose seats, which sucked, but they still are, important enough that like the Liberals have to go after their votes if they want to like get legislation passed. And Mark Carney is not a hero. He's like a former banker. He immediately became head of the Liberal Party and got rid of their capital gains tax and their carbon tax, trying to pivot to the center. But it's still just interesting, Josh, because we've never seen the reverse Trump effect. Every time someone says Trump effect, it's always like all these authoritarians are being emboldened. But the reverse Trump effect is like, oh, people are actually standing up for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Rolling Stone had an article today about like, it is a scandal, like that literally, it is a scandal that Trump keeps talking about taking over another country, and people just kind of treat it as if like Canada is like a new couch he's considering buying, rather than like what it would take, which is like military action or such severe economic pressure as to be globally disruptive and a crime to take over another sovereign nation. And so like treating that like I think a lot of Americans are kind of treating it casually when he goes like, wouldn't it be great to have 51 states, a beautiful new flag? And but who doesn't fucking think that's cute is Canadians.
No. And he keeps on saying it. Like, it's funny because it's like, it'd be one thing if it were, one comment he made. No, he keeps on saying it. And like, again, Caroline Leavitt, like, wouldn't Canadians would just be happier. Canada should just join us. Like, and they're doing this through economic pressure, perhaps military pressure. Now, effectively, leaders are like, look, we can't rely on the United States for our military backing. And which is actually, it's terrifying. Like, as someone who wants to see demilitarization internationally, but especially obviously of the US, I don't think we should be holding all the nukes, all the guns, all the whatever. It isn't necessarily a safer world when we have more battlefronts, when we have
certainly not.
Right. And just like, you're like, but of course, it must be terrifying for Canada to be like, okay, well, we have to look to France. We have to look to the UK, obviously. Like, these are our natural allies. We're going to be circumventing the United States in a million other ways. I mean, so many Canadians are not going to be, economically, we're taking a hit, like border towns and, sort of tourist destinations are taking a massive hit. Canadians are not visiting the United States, to say nothing of other people who are afraid of being detained in a dark room for 24 hours and having their phone seized. What's crazy now, and this is the question, is that possibly there could be a secessionist move by Alberta and Saskatchewan, who went very conservative and maybe more susceptible to this like Trumpian message of like, don't you want to join the US? But like, Josh, the US has got to like look good for someone to want to join us.
Right. Even conservative Canadians, right? Like even the most conservative Americans who are like, love it or leave it, I hate Joe Biden. They're not like, but so I guess we should just be Mexico now. You know what I mean? Like that's not how people think.
Right. And if you want people to join you, you got to you got to do a little bit of finesse. Obviously Republicans, Trump, not big on consent, but like there has to be some sort of zhuzh, sort of, if we were crushing it now, okay, you could understand if tariffs somehow were working, which they're not. You could understand if there was anything actually tangible, a universal basic income. I say the first North American country, Mexico included, to roll out UBI fine. That make a pitch for people to want to join your country.
For sure. But do you think, how many Canadians do you think are champing at the bit to give up their health care?
Exactly. They're like, we're barely hanging on with the healthcare we have. I think it's interesting to see liberals fight. And I feel like we cannot graft the American experience onto the Canadian one at all. They're completely different. And I feel like as Americans, we have no concept of what it would even feel like because we're the hegemon, we're the superpower. But like, it is amazing that we are now engendering this nationalism in another country that saw us as an ally, and that actually centrist liberals who are so used to rolling over and so used to neoliberal economics are like, maybe we have to actually stand up for our people a little bit more. So I'm not saying the Liberal Party is going to be they're not the solution. They're not. But I think it's an interesting, like, new little trend of not American liberals, because we're fucking useless. I mean, in terms of the Democratic Party largely, but like, oh, are we encouraging other countries' neoliberal parties to maybe fight a little bit more and maybe get to some of the like good economic populist ideas that they've walked away from?
Sure. Yeah. It really feels like other, I don't know what the right term is, like Western nations, like America is the friend from college who kind of like went off the deep end, and now there's a group chat without America. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Where it's
totally.
like, there's the things that everyone will say to America's face now, and then the stuff they're like, okay, but we got a plan for if they fucking freak out at this bachelor party.
Yeah, we're gonna 5150 this.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's go. This is a decidedly less fun, but really, really important. This was also the week where Itamar Ben Gvir, the far-right security minister of Israel, continued this tour around the United States, somehow allowed to tour. This is a man who was convicted in an Israeli court of incitement to racism, and which, is basically like hate crimes. I mean, it sounds not a lot, but that's just a hate crime. This is a guy who's openly wielded a gun in East Jerusalem at Palestinians. This is someone who basically endorses terrorism and part of the Kahanist movement of Israel, the most extremist. He openly believes that Gaza should be colonized for the very first time, I guess, and is on board with the ethnic cleansing that we're seeing play out every damn day. And the other thing that keeps me up in the middle of the night, in addition to dumb little things. But in his visit over, let's see, I'm trying to remember exactly. He was over in Crown Heights. He was in New York. He was outside of, it was a synagogue, I believe. Paige, maybe you can help me out with the exact name. But what unfolded after the protests of his visit is truly chilling. Now, there were basically two women who were attacked and followed by a massive mob of mostly like young Jewish men, seemingly mostly Orthodox, pro Ben Gvir fans, right? And here's just a little bit of what one person captured on their phone of this woman who was not part of the anti-Ben Gvir protests. In fact, she was just in the neighborhood and kind of like watching what was unfolding. The mob kind of like sicked their attention on her, assumed she was like pro-Palestinian. She put a handkerchief over her face to protect her, and this is kind of what unfolded. So she's being escorted by one cop. There's only one cop who's next to her. And there's like maybe, 100 or so. And it's the global HQ of Shabbat Lubavitch movement. Thank you. Now they're singing Death to Arabs. And then this cuts to another moment. One pushes a trash can in front of her. Now a guy's about to throw a cone at her. And she's still being escorted just by one cop. go back to chanting death to Arabs. And then they sort of get her finally to this one police car. She gets escorted home. And this is terrifying. This is like, I cannot believe that she was all alone. In fact, she talks about this. She spoke to Hellgate Reporting in New York. She said she had since spoken to an NYPD detective who told her they were going to try to prosecute those involved, although she's still been unable to formally report the incident because the officers she'd been waiting to talk to at her apartment, quote, never showed up. This is from the New York Times. The crowd chanted death to Arabs in Hebrew, followed her, and an officer had begun escorting her. Many also shouted racist and sexist anti-Arab profanities as others shoved her. At least one hurled an orange construction cone at her head before the officer was able to put her in the vehicle, footage shows. The police department said in a statement that the officer escorting the woman saw her surrounded and pushed through the group to bring her to safety. She was taken home in a department vehicle. Even Eric Adams took to Twitter and was like, hate has no place in New York City except for, all the undocumented people I'm rounding up, saying that the NYPD is going to be investigating this. And, the other interesting part about this is the other woman who was attacked and actually hit in the face was an Israeli woman, or a woman with an Israeli passport. She tweeted, we don't know her name, and I think everyone is protecting her identity. But she posted on Instagram, the only thing that gives me some joy is that while all the Zios were celebrating and laughing at me, I'm over here thinking y'all hit a Jew with a damn Israeli passport. Great job. She sort of like posted a photo of herself saying the EMT said she looked cute still. And, trying to make light of it. But it is deeply, deeply disturbing. And so it's like good to see Eric Adams saying something. I was also kind of heartened that Jerry Nadler, rep of obviously a Jewish representative of New York, longest serving Jewish member of the House. He basically he was joined by rabbis and Brad Lander, the comptroller, and announced he'd introduce legislation designed to impose economic sanctions on Israeli settlers who commit violence in the West Bank. He said, quote, it's a message everyone else should take. We don't support this. Whatever he say, there are major Jewish groups who are opposed to this, who support a democratic, peaceful Israel, and are opposed to the kind of racism and violence that he represents. And that's directly at Ben Gvir. Josh, it's wild because we're just in this time when Columbia students are being rounded up. Their visas are being revoked. University of Michigan students are having their doors busted in by law enforcement. And yet we have all of these instances of actual violence from pro-Israel groups and people that just kind of don't hit. It's just like it's like we're supposed to pretend we don't even see what's going on.
Yeah, it's really upsetting and disheartening. I think the Eric Adams statement is more of a anytime he can pat the police on the back, that's what he's gonna do. So he found the pro cop angle in this.
Right.
That wasn't really the issue at play, but he was like, thank goodness the NYPD escorted this woman to safety.
The
it's like,
one guy.
That's what you got from this. And yeah, it's really tough. It's hard. And I liked seeing Representative Nadler speak up, and Brad Lander I think has been pretty consistent too. But it's tough to say, like, as New Yorkers, we don't stand for this. As Jewish people, we don't stand for this. As American people, we don't stand for this. Because there's so often a rejoinder from people who are pro-Israel in everything it does that will go, yes, we fucking do stand for it. This is the thing we stand for the most. And it's hard to combat, but it is like really important to see the coalition of people that are coming together to oppose this violence and ethnic cleansing, and to like really pay attention to the people who are standing up against it and the consequences they're facing. Like you said, Columbia students being sent to prison, not being able to contact their lawyers, Tufts students getting thrown in a van by masked ICE agents. And it's like, this is, and gosh, where was I reading? But like, just under the guise of stopping anti-Semitism, which like clearly is not the salient issue here.
I mean, what's crazy is like, first of all, they would have done so much worse to these I mean, they did to the woman who actually has an Israeli passport, ironically again. But for, I think a lot of these extremists, it does not matter whether you're Jewish. It doesn't matter whether you're Israeli. If you have any sympathies to the Palestinian people, your Jewishness is immediately revoked. You are no longer a Jew.
I mean, Trump said that about Chuck Schumer, right? Trump said he's not Jewish anymore. And it's
he's a Palestinian.
And I feel like it is not the salient point here, but I think it is worth reiterating that like anti-Semitism exists and is bad, and this isn't what it is, and this isn't how you stop it from happening.
It's Kanye wearing a literal Klansman outfit. Like, I've been losing my mind that like there's a lot of anti-Semitism happening.
Yes.
But again, and I think like it's nice that Nadler said that, and I don't know Lander's full backstory with it, but I do think you got to name the groups. Okay, is it JVP? Because it better as hell be JVP. Like, it better be Jewish Voice for Peace. It better be Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. It better be If Not Now. It better be all these great, awesome organizations that have been really carrying the torch on this. But I hate when it's just like, well, there are Jewish groups. It's like, stand up for them then. Stand up for them, because they don't feel like they're being supported by Jews in powerful places like yourself, like the congressman, And so, but yeah, it's also just shows you like, look, there is extremism in this issue, but honestly, it really comes from one side, especially in the US. Especially in the US, we're seeing this because we have not seen that level of violence coming from the other side at all. And my God, have they been looking, because they've been equating, scrawling a triangle on a fucking statue as that level of violence, or saying from the river to the sea as that level of violence. But no one's been hit, no one's been kicked, no one's been chased by massive, pro-Palestinian mobs. No, we've just not seen that. So it's like, produce the evidence, because otherwise, anyway, I digress, because it's
really sad and scary, and and I think it's heartening to remember that most people are not on that side. Most people aren't ready to show up and act as independent private security for Ben Gvir.
Yes. And it's also proof that we were like, okay, maybe travel restrictions should exist for a reason, because when like someone who is a terrorist sympathizer, like an actual terrorist sympathizer, comes to your city, what's going to happen. Like, there's going to be a lot of extremist people there, no matter who they are, no matter what they stand for. You should protect the people of your city better than that, fucking Eric Adams.
Agreed.
Anyway, Josh Gondelman, on that depressing note, you're wonderful. Where can people find you, follow your work, see you live?
I write a weekly newsletter called That's Marvelous. You can get it at joshgondelman.substack.com. It's free. It's every week. It's full of jokes and pep talks. And my live dates, new stand-up special coming soon. More info on that soon. And I host a stand-up show. I'm like off the road a little bit, I think, for now. But I host a stand-up show, co-host. It's first and third Mondays of every month in Brooklyn at Union Hall. Nice. To my knowledge, we have never been protested nor counter-protested. I usually host the third Monday, but I'm usually, I know. Yeah, it's no fun. No, it's so much fun. It's great. And would love to see you there. So those are the two places that I recommend if you're looking for more Josh Gondelman related news and information.
Always. And that Substack sounds exactly like
it's a lot of fun. Need. Very silly.
Thank you, Josh. Come back soon.
Thanks for having me. I'd love to.
Take care. And thank you, everybody, for being here, for chilling. We got another amazing guest for you, the editor-in-chief of Informed Comment, that publishes deep geopolitical analysis and is readable for a general audience. I can attest as a general audience member. He's also a professor of history at the University of Michigan and the author of several books. Please welcome Juan Cole. Juan.
Hi, Francesca.
Hey, welcome, Juan. I wasn't going to ask you this question, but I am going to ask you now, given that you're at the University of Michigan, and that slipped my mind, but the kinds of aggression that we've seen on the students who are speaking out for Palestine, on Palestinian students, breaking down the doors of students who've participated in encampments and demonstrations, from your professorial vantage point, but as staff, as faculty, just tell me what the vibe has been on campus and how this has been impacting your students.
Well, it's not entirely clear to me exactly who was targeted. They don't, and it's right, they don't give out the names and so forth. So nobody in my immediate circles has been affected by this, to my knowledge. And not all of the demonstrators who were responsible for occupying the administrative building, for instance, in fall of after the war began, were necessarily students or still are.
Right.
But obviously, breaking down people's doors and sort of terrorizing them in this way and brutalizing them is very upsetting. And the big issue is that we have an internal way of dealing with things at the University of Michigan. There were 11 students who occupied the administrative building. The administrative building at the University of Michigan has been occupied over and over and over again through the decades. I myself was at Northwestern during the Vietnam War, and it could easily be given a life sentence for the things that I did then, protesting that war. So these 11 students were essentially given an internal trial about their behavior, and the internal university disciplinary body decided there wasn't a case against them. They were let go.
Right.
And then the regents took the students to the Washtenaw County prosecutor, who looked into it and also refused to rule against them. And then the regents reached out to the state attorney general.
Jesus.
And had the state bring charges. And in Michigan, there's no misdemeanor trespassing charges. It's a felony. So these 11 young people, could end up being tried and convicted of a felony, which would ruin their lives. And for protesting a genocide, it's really quite shameful. And the Attorney General has made many remarks which show that she's not objective about this case. And in fact, there's now a move to try to get her removed from the case.
Great.
Even her own lawyers admitted in a different case that she's not objective on this issue. So we'll see what happens. But the entire thing reflects very badly on the University of Michigan, on the regents, and on the state government of Michigan. And mostly the bad actors have been Democrats.
That's really important to underscore. And yes, you're right that, the breaking down of the doors has not been confirmed if any of them were the 11 students who participated in the building takeover. But as you mentioned, this has been done in university after university for protesting, usually war. In my case, it was the Iraq War. In your case, it's the Vietnam War. In every generation, we've done this. And the idea, and I keep on thinking about this, that in my time, that these cases would be elevated to the state level, looking at these kinds of charges, these misdemeanors, is wild. Like, that is wild to me and terrifying as like an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old, whatever it is. And the fact that, they're being done by these so-called liberal institutions, so-called Democrats. It's really, it's ominous, Juan. Like, to me, it says a lot about, I think, the trust going forward that young people have in the Democratic Party more broadly, and in the very institutions that sadly right now we should be supporting. We should be standing up for institutions that are coming under attack from the authoritarians in power. But instead, because they're so focused on actually prosecuting their own, we can't pull together.
Yeah, amen.
Let me pivot and just ask you, about all the other stuff happening in the world. I wanted to get your thoughts on, before we talk about, Gaza and Israel and whatnot, but give me your thoughts on the new neo-colonial efforts of the Trump administration to just sort of like randomly want to grab territory, annex Canada, 51st state, take over the Panama Canal again, take over Greenland for freshwater resources or whatever reason, or create a new colony, called Praxis or whatever the hell it is. The Suez Canal, like all of these efforts, like what is your read on how they're impacting and how they're shaping the US's role in the world and countries' responses to these little places where we feel like we could muscle in?
Sure. Well, it's alarming everybody. And, there's a big debate in political science about whether countries can be friends. I mean, what level does that mean anything? Aren't they always after their own national interest? And friendly relations mean that you have a common objective for a while. Harry Truman, complaining about the atmosphere in Washington, D.C., once said, if you want a friend, buy a dog. Realists might argue that Trump is not acting any different way than any other U.S. government has acted. Bush woke up one day and decided that he wanted to own Iraq, and he did. I thought it was a bad idea, but that's what he wanted to do. And actually, the rest of the world sort of said, welcome to it for the most part. There were objections of a polite nature from Beijing and Moscow at the time, and Paris. But in any case, in some ways, what Trump is doing is not so different from Bush deciding to own Iraq, or from the U.S. government deciding to help Israel occupy 5 million Palestinians and keep them stateless, regardless of what the State Department talking points might be about the mythical, never yet seen two-state solution, that imaginary phoenix that they keep chasing. The fact is that the U.S. is all in with Israel occupying the Palestinians and keeping them from having a state. And now it's the policy of the U.S. government enunciated by Trump to expel the Palestinians from their homeland, simply ethnically cleanse them. So, but that's, although that's openly saying that is new, the policy was there under Biden, basically. So yes, fingering Greenland openly and Canada openly and so forth is it's a little unusual. But the U.S. is an imperial power, and it has been for a very long time, and it's rampaged around the world grabbing stuff. It grabbed the Philippines, it grabbed Iraq, it tried to grab Vietnam, it usually has a pretty good cover story for these actions. It's threatened by the international communism, therefore has to occupy Vietnam, or it's threatened by international terrorism, even though Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11 whatsoever. The U.S. administration was very good about going around intimating that, bin Laden and Saddam Hussein of Iraq were secret lovers and so forth. So it's in some ways not new.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what is new, though, and just to point it out, is like these are our allies, right? So ostensibly, these guys are supposed to be part of the coalition of the willing when we want to go invade the brown countries, right? I mean, not that Greenland is really a big piece of that, but Canada certainly. And so there's a lack of trust now. Even obviously, JD Vance hates Europe. We can, we don't have to dissect NATO right now, but it does change the balance more broadly. And I think, honestly, for in some ways good and in some ways bad, Trump is hastening the demise of the empire by obliterating whatever, allies and alliances we once had. So it's ironic, of course, because, he's all about American exceptionalism no matter what. And then in so trying to exercise it is only hastening it. And you could argue that George W. Bush also did the exact same thing, and so much trust was lost after Iraq and Afghanistan. But I did want to talk about what's going on now in Yemen, because we're getting new reports that the U.S., according to the Houthis, bombed a prison in Yemen that killed 68 mostly African migrants who were being housed in this prison, wounded 47. This is in addition to the 74 people killed on April 18th at a fuel port, 171 people wounded, the deadliest attack of this American campaign. The big story around these attacks on Yemen has been Hegseth being an absolute nincompoop and sharing war plans on Signal, which is very important because it's scary and puts a lot of people at risk, but also the actual facts on the ground of the people being killed, these prisoners. Can you give us a sense of what you know about what's playing out in Yemen and your thoughts on how the kinds of crimes that might be being committed right now?
Oh, Francesca, anytime you hear that one country is bombing a group in another country, and there's no commitment of any troops on the ground, then you can be assured that it's all for show. It's not a serious military effort. Again, I remember us carpet bombing, or I remember the United States carpet bombing Vietnam. Didn't seem to help win the war. The Yemenis have been bombed since 2015 when the Houthis, the helpers of God, they call themselves, came to power in the north, and the Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates formed a coalition, their own coalition of the willing, to push the Houthis back out of the territory they had taken. They did succeed in pushing them out of the south, out of Aden, the port in the south, but they never were able to make serious inroads in North Yemen, where a very substantial part of the population belongs to the Zaydi Shiite branch of Islam, from which the Houthis hail. Not all Zaydis are Houthis. Houthis are a particular movement within them. And they have a lot of Sunni tribal allies as well. Otherwise, they couldn't, they probably rule about 80% of the population of the country. But the Saudis were never willing to put troops into Yemen.
Right.
Wisely so, because it's a very, I've been there, it's a very rugged country and not promising, say, for tank movements. So they just bombed them.
Right.
They bombed them for 7 years, and then they made a truce and stopped bombing them because they didn't get anywhere from bombing them. So now Trump seems to want to play this movie again, and unless they find somebody willing to fight in Yemen, it's a little unlikely that, to me, that they're simply bombing it is going to change much, except that, as you say, it involves a series of war crimes against civilians.
The idea that you wouldn't know that you're bombing a prison is fucking ridiculous. Like, that's just stupid. I mean, that's just like, oh, you don't have the intelligence to understand who you might be bombing, or it's like, how we warehouse migrants in this country? That's also being done in other countries. Like, these people are helpless. Like, so, and of course we know, we can't forget that ultimately the Houthis are demanding an end to the US support of the genocide in Gaza. That is why they're conducting their actions on the Red Sea, that have been largely focused on stopping commercial trade and have not, again, they're not bombing people from the skies. They're not, wreaking mass casualties on shippers.
Actually, I think we should acknowledge that the Houthi actions in the Red Sea have endangered sailors, merchant marine sailors mainly, but also U.S. and other allied sailors, and they have bombed Israel.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, but thank you. Yes, no, I appreciate the correction.
The thing is, the kinds of drones and missiles that they send out don't have good guidance systems. In my view, it's always a war crime to send out munitions like that, because they're very likely to land on civilians. And I think Israeli civilians have been wounded. The Houthis are an interesting phenomenon, and they're quite militant in their own way. But from their point of view, and from the point of view of a lot of the people who support them, they are standing against genocide in Gaza, and they're trying to do something about it, and so forth. Most of the ships that they've hit in the Red Sea are not Israeli or have anything to do with Israel.
Right.
They announced that they do, but they're very good at propaganda, but it's just not true. And then they haven't, they've hit the Israeli port of Eilat a lot, but they haven't really hit military targets in Israel or done anything serious to impede the Israeli military operations. So they haven't behaved in a responsible way, in my view, even if their self-report of their actions has this rationale.
Right.
The other thing to say, though, is that how would you get them to cut this out? Well, it's not by bombing them. And then the other thing is that Trump declared them terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something he had done when he was in the last time, and then Biden reversed it. They were under certain sanctions having to do with terrorism under Biden. But if you declare them terrorists under U.S. law, then say I'm an aid group, and I'm heading an aid group, and I want to bring fuel to Sana'a for people, for civilians. I'd have to deal with the Houthi government in order to get it there, right? They're the government. Well, I deal with the Houthi government and they're terrorists, then I'm guilty of material support.
Right.
So they can whisk my ass off to El Salvador. So the aid groups are not willing to operate under these conditions.
Yeah.
So by declaring them terrorists, Trump has visited enormous damage on the civilian population. And then they're bombing oil depots. Sure, the Houthi weaponry works by petroleum, but then inside Yemen, it's rugged. As I said, you've got to get from your farm down to market to buy stuff. How are you going to go? You're going to go in a car. If there's no fuel, then you can't get to market. So you're reduced to living off what you can garden. So the Yemenis are well off to begin with.
No, exactly. And we know that, they were, there was mass starvation of the population under, as you mentioned, the Saudi and the US, supported, attacks on Yemen, for which, Bernie and Rand Paul came together to block weapons sales to Saudi during that time. I did want to then talk about, because it's important to know that Biden also bombed the Houthis in Yemen. So it's not been just Trump. Trump's ramped it up under Hegseth. But the other thing we're now learning, according to, I believe, Channel 13, an Israeli channel, did an hour-long documentary. It's mostly in Hebrew, but they interviewed 9 Biden officials, and DropSite News, put out this report, having translated and watched this documentary, that Biden, behind the scenes, and his top officials were never actually pressuring Netanyahu for a ceasefire. Former advisor Jake Sullivan, Ambassador Tom Nides, and others defended their unwavering support for Israel, even as they admitted enabling a campaign. One U.S. aide described it as, quote, killing for the sake of killing. Let me see if I can bring this up here. Killing for the sake of killing. So another quote from a former Israeli ambassador, Michael Herzog, said, God did the state of Israel a favor that Biden was the president during this period. We fought in Gaza for over a year. The administration never came to us and said, ceasefire now. It never did. And that's not to be taken for granted. Juan, your reaction to now the behind the scenes, news that the Biden administration was not, as they said, working around the clock for a ceasefire.
Well, it was obvious to anybody with eyes that they weren't working for a ceasefire. The way things work in the rest of the world, the United States is still a superpower. All Biden had to do was pick up a phone and tell Netanyahu, cut it out. And it would all have ended. For one thing, the Israelis ran out of ammunition fairly early in the war. The United States was supplying them in real time, day by day, in order for them to prosecute this attack on Gaza. And the UN has looked into some of those one-ton bombs that were dropped, were dropped on apartment complexes where people were living there. And the UN said it couldn't find any evidence of there being a military installation or a military facility anywhere in this neighborhood. They just dropped bombs on civilian apartment buildings. And maybe there was a Hamas guy in there someplace, but they seem to be willing to kill 20 people to get at one, which is a war crime. This is one of the worst atrocities we've seen in the 21st century by civilians killed per combatant. And the Israelis will give out these figures. Oh well, 13,000 of the people killed were actually militants, and so the ratio of killed to civilians is only militants killed to civilians is only 1 to 2, which is common in military affairs. And you hear this from supporters of Israel all the time, that this is not out of the ordinary. Well, first of all, the Israelis don't know how many militants they've killed.
Yes, they've said as much. They've been asked point blank, and they've admitted they don't know. So
you can't make a ratio out of it. And then how you count militants is also an issue. Hamas was a political party. It was a civilian political party which had a paramilitary wing. The civilian political party ran Gaza, a territory of 2.2 million people. So obviously there were a lot of Hamas members, but the number of people who were in the Qassam brigades, which is the paramilitary, it's 30,000 people.
Right.
And then is it a legitimate military goal to kill every single one of them? I mean, this October 7th atrocity which Hamas carried out, and we have to condemn it. It was a horrible thing that they did. But it seems to have been kept very close to the chest by a few top commanders. It's not even clear that the civilian party members knew it was coming. We know the CIA has said that it doesn't believe that they told the Iranians what they were going to do. So the 30,000, how many of them even knew that this was going to be planned? And simply by virtue of being members of the Qassam brigades, which also functioned as the self-defense of Gaza, they should all be killed. And the way that the Israelis are killing them is to wait till they get home at night, follow them by drones, and then kill them and their families, their little children, their neighbors, whoever's visiting them. And they have a ratio. They'll say, well, it's all right. It's all right to kill 15 to 20 civilians for every Hamas member killed.
And even more if it's a top, what was it? Is something like 60 to 100 if it's a top Hamas official. And this is the thing about all of this, Juan, is that the reason that I have such a hard time, and that I think that the Hezbollah line is lost on everybody is because we see the IDF not actually distinguishing between militants and civilians, between Hamas civil versus militant. We see them lump, whether it's their top ministers, whether it's their, again, propagandists online, whether it's their tweets, they lump everyone together, no matter if you are a 4-month-old baby or if you are, Mr. Hamas himself. Like, they've never drawn a distinction. So how can the rest of the world even react? Because ultimately, we hear the way that their extremists speak. We know that they want to create, as Trump said, a Riviera of the Middle East. Ethnic cleansing is the goal, and they have not been shy about it. I think it is devastating that we now know that no ceasefire was being worked on. And once again, kind of bringing us back to the first point, it's devastating for the Democratic Party. And it says a lot about who we elevate going forward in these kinds of affairs, especially given how much the Israeli lobby has infiltrated through money our primary elections, our general elections, how much they have funneled money into more Republicans than Democrats, thwarting progressive Dems, no matter if they have anything to do with the issue of Palestinians or even know about it. And so it's just like, yeah, we knew it. We saw this hood smoking. We've got the hood lifted, and it's like, yep, everything we heard or thought we were, was going on, which was nothing. And you've got Ilhan Omar out here saying, like, we all knew this was a lie. And I love it. Meanwhile, a lot of people are reaming AOC because she was someone who at the DNC national stage said Kamala Harris is working tirelessly for a ceasefire. I think the truth of the matter is Kamala Harris was kept as far away as possible from any of these dealings.
Well, the vice president in the United States doesn't have any power. It's not like she could volunteer to take over Gaza policy. She was kept away from it by Biden and Blinken and others. I suspect that, given her background and so forth, and that she wasn't happy about the Gaza situation. But I don't think that she had anything to do with it, or would have been allowed to.
Right.
And the thing to say is that people have a right to support Israel. Israel is a country. It's in the United Nations. It's been recognized. It's not.
Doesn't like to adhere to international law, however, despite being part of the UN.
Well, neither does the United States. But,
right.
We have lots of ethnic lobbies in the United States. The Armenians want the Turks to be punished for the Armenian genocide, which, reparations probably are in order if you kill a lot of people. But there's nothing wrong with all of that. That's just American politics. What's wrong is that Bibi Netanyahu was out of office and under corruption charges, and the only way he could get back into power was to bring along the equivalent of the neo-Nazis in Israel, and he did. And this was a red line, like you said. These guys had been charged. They had convictions for racial incitement, and they're violent people who believe in ethnic cleansing, and they're the religious Zionism and Jewish power blocs are the reason. One of the major reasons that the war is still going on is because they want the Gazans to all be killed or removed, and they threaten Netanyahu with causing the government to fall if he doesn't do that. So that AIPAC or any Jewish organization in the United States could get behind that is what's dismaying. It's not that they're pro-Israel or that they value Israeli accomplishments or that they take pride in it or they think that Jews should have sovereignty someplace in the world. It's that they would get behind the most despicable criminals who have the kinds of values that produced the Holocaust in the first place. And then they should have the nerve to come to us and tell them that we're not allowed to criticize it.
100%. You're absolutely right. And there's a lot more we could say. I did want to finally pivot to Iran. If you didn't know, you know this, but the audience, Iran and the US are actually talking. There's some negotiations happening. Oman is coordinating, interestingly. There may even be talk of re-entering the Iran deal negotiated under Obama, which again basically neutralized Iran's nuclear weapons program, was a massive crowning achievement. No thanks to Hillary Clinton. I always will hate her time as Secretary of State. But I guess I just want to get your sense on this because I'm very scared. I feel like the U.S. Is not at all good negotiating in good faith. I don't trust them. I think that their allegiances to Netanyahu are far larger, and Netanyahu will never allow the United States to enter into another kind of agreement with Iran. They freaked out the first time. But what is your sense of it, and what is your sense of sort of preventing an all-out, hot war or, almost Yemen-style attacks on Iran from the U.S.?
Right. And we have seen the Israelis conduct those bombing raids against Iran after Iran fired missiles at Israel. So things could get very hot very quick. First of all, Francesca, maybe I'm a little bit out of the mainstream on this, but I don't believe that Iran has a nuclear weapons program or ever has had. I think that's the assessment of the major intelligence agencies in Washington, D.C. They haven't ever made a decision to weaponize their program. What they have is a civilian nuclear enrichment program. You need uranium enriched to 3.5% or so, 3.75% to run a nuclear reactor. The Russians built them one at Bushehr. What's suspicious about the Iranian civilian program is that they enrich way more uranium than they need to for their reactor.
Mm-hmm.
And then they enrich at a higher rate than you need to for a reactor. Now, if you enrich up to the 95% or something, then you fairly easily could smash together a bomb. You'd need other technologies. It's not clear that the Iranians are there yet. But it's just nervous making if they're going to enrich to 60%, which they have done recently. So one thing that the Obama deal did was to forestall that. They said you can only have a certain number of centrifuges. You can only run them a certain amount of time. You have to give up all your extra enriched uranium. The Russians, I think, took some of it, and the others they cast it in a form it can't be used. So it was a good deal, and Trump just ripped it up.
Yep.
Partly because it didn't address the geopolitics. So Iran was active in Syria, it was active in Iraq, it's active in Yemen, and the Trump faction wanted them out. They wanted them to withdraw, in addition to mothballing 80% of their nuclear enrichment program.
Right.
So that now I think there is an opportunity because they're out of Syria willy-nilly.
Mm-hmm.
The Syrians made a revolution. The Iranians have been kicked out.
Right.
They're not as powerful in Iraq. I don't think Yemen amounts to that much. And if Trump could put his name on a new deal with Iran, I've always thought, he's such a narcissist. If the Iranians, they probably don't have it in them because they're proud people. But if they just said, yes, Mr. President, we really want to deal with you, and we'll call it the Trump anti-nuclear
the Trump peace
of 2025.
Right. Get some sanctions relief.
That they finally could be brought into the world community. So Trump is so erratic, you don't know. There'll be a good outcome like that, or there'll be a war. I can't tell you.
I love it. And if you go to Informed Comment, that you should all go, you also repost just awesome reporting from around the internet about the Middle East mostly and the U.S.'s involvement. But Iran accuses Israel's Netanyahu of trying to derail nuclear talks, and that's Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty reporting on that. So sort of as suspected. Yes, you never know. But there's so much to say. Juan, we've covered many countries, many issues, and yet there's still more. But thank you so much for being here, being on. Where can people find you, read your work? How can people support you?
Well, if you just Google JUANCOLE, my Informed Comment blog comes right to the top. That's the way to keep in touch with me.
JuanCole.com. I've been following you and reading you since the, obviously, so-called war on terror. And, it's always been solid. I'm so glad that you are out there teaching the young minds and still writing and still just offering this space. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Francesca. I'm a real fan. I really think the American left needs your voice, and I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing.
I appreciate you. I can only do it because of folks like you. Love Juan, guys. Everyone, Informed Comment, JuanCole.com. If you're not already in the know, just decades of good analysis. And so I really appreciate, and just really digestible also, because I think sometimes you have to be really steeped in some of this stuff, and I don't think that's the way it should be. Guys, let's read some comments and go. Because I appreciate y'all. Thank you for being here. Rappin' Fact says those evil DEI pennies had to go. The other thing we didn't talk about, but it's just we have to mention it. The amount of racism, the amount of fragile racism in the first 100 days, I also didn't expect. Firing 4-star generals because they're Black, purging entire departments because they employ marginalized people, they employ queer people, they employ women, they employ Black people. That's just, I don't think I was expecting that degree, although I should have. Grumpy Dragon, thank you for that super sticker, reminding me also, since Grumpy Dragon's always on the stream, the final show of America Unhinged for now is tonight, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you are listening in the future, you can always go back and watch them. And I really encourage people to go back and watch them because we've had some of the best interviews that are still relevant, even though some of the stuff we've talked about in the last 100 days have been, about breaking news. I gotta say the interviews have persisted. So if you haven't treated yourself to the Zetaeos, America Unhinged, again, yes, you'll hear my voice again, blah, 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 but the interviews have been absolutely stellar. So check back on that. Shia Cat, member for 6 months on YouTube. We love Canada, ... Feel like there's something ominous coming at the end of that. Benjamin Morrill, Zionists are going to Zio. They think it's okay because America's told them it's okay for so long. America is guilty for this woman's treatment. Our guilty for the Shoah is used to justify this bullshit. I think so many Jews agree with you as well. Kobe Green, perhaps the U.S. should just not be there. We just dissolve us. We're done. China, take the reins. You don't like my music on YouTube. Student protesters are labeled terrorists while Proud Boys are patriots. Just Julie, thanks for covering this topic. Probably, I'm assuming Yemen. Rachel Atwood, Jake Sullivan is a waste of space and skin. Agreed. I'm excited for the full documentary that Channel 13 produced to actually be translated, so we sort of get a better sense of all of that. But a lot of those interviews, and you guys can look it up on YouTube, they are in English, so we'll know a lot of it. And Benjamin Morrill, saying, look, I can't get on the AOC or Bernie train. AOC knew she was lying when she lied to our faces at the DNC. Until we demand better, we won't get it. And I think that's a really honest reaction. And I think the key in your comment, Ben, is demand. We cannot be cynical about this. We can still be on the side of demanding that any Democrat or any party or anyone going forward draw their line in the sand and actually come down on the side of international human rights. Today, the ICJ has a hearing on Israeli obligations to the people of Gaza as they continue to ethnically cleanse them. And yet, of course, under international law, if you're in a war, which again, there's no problem calling this genocide, because if it were actually a war, there would be a humanitarian obligation to the people of Gaza. There's been no aid let in since the beginning of March, when Israel unilaterally broke their ceasefire because they felt like it. Okay. So I think going forward, this is a litmus test. You have to find out, what do you believe in? Do you believe in money pouring in, supporting Israel? Do you believe in ethnic cleansing? Do you believe in genocide? And I don't want to hear any of this two-state solution BS. What I want to hear is no more funding for Israel's crimes, period. You don't got to tell me what the future is. All I need to hear you say, no more funding for Israel. That's it. That's it. That truly is it. You can also, if you need a crutch, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, the United Nations, the illegal annexation of the West Bank, the illegal occupation. There's a reason we call it illegal occupation. It's not because crazy activists came up with that term. It's because the international community said that this is illegal, because it is. So that's what I would like to see going forward. And Donald James also saying, look, it's okay to denounce AOC, but make sure we have an alternative. I'm saying something different, right? Not that we have to have an alternative. We have to ask for folks to do better. We have to have them and AOC do better. I don't think we're going to get an apology for running cover for the Biden administration, but I think we can demand that she do better in the future. Robert says, billionaires are going to fight like the chuds they are to control the Democratic Party in the upcoming Democratic electoral process, potentially. And Rachel Atwood, commercial trade routes are Trump's top priority. Indeed, they always are. But like more taxes and tariffs. Like if the Houthi rebels could be, contracted to collect tariffs on whatever goods are coming through the Red Sea, that could be a good use of, we could just solve this for everybody. Hey, let's get to that time to thank all of the patrones who joined at $10 or more, people who upgraded their pledge, people who became members on Twitch, on YouTube. This is the fart song. Jenna B. Bushin. Thank you, Lisa Waters, Daniel Farley, Andrew Broman, Justin S. Bienvenidos, patrones. Thank you for upgrading, Amanda M. or Ragin' Cajun, Spinach Monster. No new subs on Substack, but frannyfio.substack.com if you want to support. Thank you, Looney Tunes 9000 over on Twitch, 16 months strong, who just resubscribed, and Simple Man from the Woods. I already mentioned you, but thank you. Also, thanks to we don't have any. Do we have any new members? We don't have any. We don't have any new members. That's okay. We'll just dance it out. A beautiful, complete fart song. Hey, your support goes a long way to supporting this mighty but tiny tiny team of Paige Omek, of Brent Godin, of Andy Vasoyan. They're wonderful. They're behind the scenes. They help me every goddamn day, as well as my cat, who really needs to poo-poo inside her box. And if you're listening, Ramona, please poo-poo in your box, because I stepped in your poo the other day and it was very upsetting. And I love you, but I can't be potty training 2 kids at this time. Remember, y'all, until tomorrow, until the next day, and every single goddamn day, beyond the 100 days, remember to fight the power, to fuck the patriarchy, to free Palestine, and don't just bitch about it. Be about it. See you on the streets. Mayday. Let's go. Bye.